Udyr to be the first one. Probably going to be Karsa. A lot of people have been still favoriting that ADC in the bot lane. Well, personally, I feel like things have kind of shifted away from that being like the hard meta in the bot lane. You can really change things up.
I think as well, I mean, you've got Knight in the mid lane, so I guess they just want to go for the Orianna, have Knight on a strong laning champion. The Thresh hover would suggest maybe this side of top esports want to lean towards something like an Aphelios. I'm not gonna lie, I was expecting like Tristana and Alistar insta-lock here from JackeyLove and Zhuo, one of the most aggressive 2v2s we have in the league, but going for a different tact here as we go into this series against EDG.
Well, this is something that I was kind of alluding to. It's the fact the meta has really shifted. Even if, you know, top esports play their own thing, they still have to worry about certain aspects, such as that Thresh and even not the Aphelios, more of the Jinx that we've been seeing, to replace that and to match up with something that can peel and keep her safe at all times.
Yeah, a lot of scaling on the side of EDG here as we've got the Tristana, so a bit of aggression able to be there in the early game from Viper, but also great scaling. Same with the Vikotr there in the mid lane for Scout, something he's been leaning on. But over to the side of top esports, you'd expect them to lock in an AD carry here since they've already shown the Thresh. It's going to be difficult to get what they want if they don't go for it. So locking into Jayce, this means EDG can target ban JackeyLove now, getting rid of things like the Jinx that you mentioned, the Aphelios that we mentioned previously as well. Could make the bottom lane a little bit more difficult for top esports here than Alistar banned away by them.
Alistar ban is a bit surprising, purely for the fact that I feel that they don't really need to care too much about the Tristana Alistar bot lane. While it can be a bit volatile, you have to be a bit careful, and if Meiko's trying to look for those early plays, it's not really that worrying of a trend, especially if you're going to be able to have duel on a Thresh that it's more of a skill matchup. You're waiting to see if the headbutt pulverize combination comes in, so you can play. Same with something like Rel. So if they leave open Rel, it's pretty much them trying to force EDG to play that in the bot lane.
So we have a Mundo ban coming out from EDG, so I guess more bans focused on towards Karsa, which, I mean, I guess that works. Leon is still available for Meiko if he does want to go for hard engage support alongside that Tristana. Even things like the Rakan that we've been seeing coming through. EDG, do they go for one of these AD carry bans, or do they just kind of forego that at this point and maybe look to ban yet another jungler? I mean, there are so many junglers already taken off of the board. I'm trying to think of what other hard engaged junglers that are to ban.
See, I was wondering if you were going to go for something maybe like Nidalee, just to be able to take some early game pressure away from top esports. You talked about that win lane, win game mentality. There it is. That's the kind of the pick I was thinking. Like, what else is left? What else can you fall back to? Sure, it's not necessarily a hard engage, but at least it's going to be something that can facilitate an early lane.
This is vintage Karsa. This is the good stuff right here. This is the stuff that's on the top shelf down in your parents' basement that you're not allowed to touch. It's been gathering dust and aging for years. His Nidalee is clean, and we're going to get to see that, especially alongside 369 on the Jayce. That, remember, 369's had a rough split so far, except the most recent series where he was playing Jayce and got back-to-back MVPs. This pick for him looks amazing.
But of course, it is still a possibility that it gets countered in the top lane. We saw in the last series, the Kalista, the infamous Lashani pick in that top lane, something that last year, Lyric and Tolby had been permanently banned away from him. I wouldn't expect that from Flandre. Expect something to try to be more like that Malphite, where, sure, it is not necessarily going to be able to dominate that laning phase. It's more about being able to help build out the rest of the team.
Yeah, I mean, Flandre, when you think of Flandre, you think of things like the Aatrox, for example. You think of these frontliners, and Sion going to be able to fill in there. We get to see JackeyLove's Draven, baby. Let's go.
Oh my goodness, okay. So this is something that is incredible to see. He's one of those players that is a historic Draven player. This goes way back in the day. I mean, JackeyLove, you know he's aggressive. You know he likes to be able to silence people. So of course, Draven makes sense when you know the attitude of the player. But you talked about Karsa on one of those historic picks. Draven's one of JackeyLove's historic picks.
Man, we have some vintage top esports coming out today. This is going to be a spicy one. I can already feel it. And we have two aggressive bot lanes as well with that Nautilus Tristana that he's up against. Let's just quickly introduce, we got Viper versus JackeyLove happening on the Rift today. The two AD carries that are in the argument for best in the league. JackeyLove here to prove himself because Viper clearly took the title towards the start of the split, but more recently, people have been leaning towards JackeyLove. This is the series to find out for sure.
Especially when JackeyLove picked Draven. That's the thing to me. When you have this kind of gauntlet thrown in front of Viper, it is trying to prove that he's the best, that Viper is not it. It is me. I have been here for years. I'm here to once again prove I am the best in the LPL.
We'll find out if he can prove exactly that. That's the matchup I'm looking towards, is that bot lane 2v2, but also karsa and Jiejie. Let's see if they can influence these lanes, solo lanes as well. Oh my god, the whole series is going to be an absolute bagger. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on to Summoner's Rift. It's game number 1 between Top Esports and Edward Gaming. And my god, this is going to be a matchup and a half. Edward Gaming haven't looked as strong in their more recent series. They were on an insane win streak alongside RNG. They were tied in first place for so long in the split, but they've fallen to second. Whereas Top Esports, opposite story. They had a really rough start to the split, but ever since, they're on a 5-win streak now, and they are battling their way up the standings, currently in 6th place, but they're looking for that top 4.
Only bested in win streak by Rare Adam. Only having that one above them, but I think RNG as well. But honestly, it is impressive to see how they've been able to turn things around since the break. Looking so confident and so much more like the Top Esports we'd expect, the one we expected going into 2021.
So, as we get into this game then, let's talk about win conditions. Let's talk about what these two teams need to do. Because obviously, we got a Draven in the game. So that has to be a huge focus for Top Esports. But when you think about Top Esports, usually, they don't tend to focus on this bottom lane. It's usually down to just Zhuo and JackeyLove finding leads themselves.
And with the Draven Thresh lane, it definitely can do that. If they're able to punish this early range advantage from Viper, that might be able to give them that advantage to be able to get to the mid game. The entire composition of Top Esports is not just built around JackeyLove and Zhuo. It is about being able to win out early. As you mentioned, this is a typical TES strategy, but also having great range to be able to poke and siege in the mid game to late game. But they need to make sure they can maintain those early leads.
It's going to be the challenge, and ultimately that is the way that these two teams have been, or the way that Top Esports has been playing all split, and not even just this split, like historically, when you think about Top Esports, it is very much about Knight in the mid lane being this player that is constantly ahead in the early game, but Jiejie wants to start things off strong. JackeyLove went for the ward just in time. Meiko gonna get pulled away by Zhuo. The flash is forward, the hook is there, everything onto JackeyLove, and the first blood picked up by EDG.
Nice answer from EDG. Say, hey, they are trying to win that bot lane. They want to be able to get JackeyLove and Zhuo to be able to have the 2v2 Kingdom bot side. So what do? We answer immediately. We kill the Draven, get rid of his adoration stacks early on so that he's not going to be able to cash in at all.
Beautifully done by Jiejie, reading the map well and being able to play towards the lane that realistically they needed to get ahead in. Because when you think about Viper and his insane performances this split, it's not been the laning phase where he really pops off. He likes to scale up, and then in the team fights we've seen these insane moments. Not that his laning is bad by any stretch, but certainly that's not the highlight of his gameplay. Whereas JackeyLove, that's very much his bread and butter. So interesting to see Jiejie playing to counter exactly that.
And honestly, that's what I think that should be the answer every time from EDG. Focus on this bottom half of the map so that way you don't have to worry about a potential siege composition really getting online. That is what TES have drafted for. EDG have this big old meatball front line. Meiko, Jiejie, Flandre, they're all going to be able to get incredibly tanky and allow Scout and Viper to play for that mid and late game. To be in that position, as you mentioned, for Viper that they normally put them on. So why not get them ahead a little bit early so you can continue to deny any snowball potential from top esports.
And I want to hit on that snowball potential for a second here, because I think we're going to have a little bit of quiet before the storm, unless we get some kind of 2v2 on the bottom side. One of the stats that I wanted to bring up before this game started was, this is something that Lyric put together, which is a comparison between the two teams and the way that they play the game. When you look at top esports stats, their win percentage is at 70%, fourth place in the league. EDG, 77%, second place in the league. So comparative there. But when you go to average game time and kills per minute and kills at 15, top esports are top 3 in the league. EDG currently feeling those stats firsthand as Karsa makes an uncharacteristic gank towards the bottom side.
Getting an early kill onto this Nidalee to be a lot more powerful in the mid game. That is a nice change of pace from Karsa and needed when playing this Nidalee. Needed to be able to now control this bottom half of the map where if they lost that early kill, sure, but it's not going to be the end of the world. You can keep playing around Karsa being able to get ahead early, so of course Jiejie has to make a play elsewhere.
Yeah, but you can't really gank on tonight. He's going to have the shockwave available, still has the flash, so has to respect that one. As 369 takes a bit of a beating on the top side. Flandre not going to pull the trigger on his ultimate because he knows that Karsa's on the top half of the map. I do just want to quickly go back to these stats as the Dragon is started on the bottom side by Jiejie. I don't expect any fighting right now. I want to finish the point I was making because the second half is an important part of the point. So top esports in top 3 for average game time, kills per minute, and kills at 15, whereas EDG 16th place for average game time, 16th place for kills per minute, and 8th place for kills at 15. Now, the important thing about that statistic is not that Edward Gaming's win percentage is any lower. In fact, it's higher than top esports, but they get their wins in the late game. If you're an EDG fan, be looking towards the late game team fighting. For top esports, it's all about winning out lanes and snowball.
And this is what we need to continue to see from TES, is them playing to be able to get these leads in their lanes. If you look across the board, so far, Flandre is not really having the easiest time. Of course he's not going to. It's a Jayce matchup. 369 is very comfortable on this champion, and going into a Sion. What do you gotta do? You gotta get poked out a bunch and kind of hope that you can get any kind of CS, any scraps, to be able to get tanky enough into the late game. That is, again, what EDG want to play for, as you had highlighted. That is what they need to index completely for. But if TES can continue to accelerate this game in the early parts, not just from having Lane Kingdom, but continuing to make plays like this with Karsa, it's going to be great.
Yeah, Karsa in the bot side, but Meiko able to get away towards his tower. No, someone is used on the side of top esports. Meiko going to keep himself safe, tries to drop a ward, but Karsa's already got a pink ward in there. And I think top esports might keep this one going. The wave not really crashing anytime soon, though, so I think Karsa maybe has to back away. 369 now caught out by Jiejie. He's got some damage himself, though. Knocks the Udyr away, has flash to get away over the back of the pit. We'll be able to use the blast cone as well. So play for the top side versus the play for the bottom side. Nobody goes down, but Karsa will get a red.
Karsa will be able to steal that away. Probably going to be able to get a little bit of increased vision around this pit to maybe want to look for a dive later on. Continue to try to get JackeyLove ahead so that you can have this Draven be a menace in the mid game. That's always what you want to do. You want to be able to cash in on those adoration stacks. We'll probably be able to check in on those. I'd imagine around 12 minutes is when you really want to be able to cash in for JackeyLove, while Jiejie might want to try about 10 minutes into the game to try to see if he can make a gank bot lane to punish JackeyLove, to get rid of those adoration stacks, to not have to worry about any snowball.
Yeah, one of the potential difficulties I can see for EDG here is that when you look at the way that they'll want to play the game, you know, you've got a Vikotr that can kind of handshake the mid lane, just clear the wave and move away from that mid lane. With a Tristana, it's a relatively strong bot lane. You'd expect them to want to play towards dragons, right? But with a Draven in the game, that becomes more difficult because Draven, in almost every matchup, is going to be able to find priority just through kill threat. You can see Jiejie going towards the Herald, but in 2 minutes, I'm curious if they'll look towards a Dragon. Knight is here, though. I think Top Esports, they're not going to let this one go without a fight. 1,000 on the Herald. Karsa should be able to just finish that one. Jiejie can't get in. He's low himself. The red buff is ticking, but it's killed onto 369. Karsa's jumped in anyway. He's 2v3 alongside Knight, and they're still going strong in the fight. Scout getting low, forced to flash away. Jiejie also ticking on down. Karsa chasing for the kills. One bite goes in. Knight with the kill. Scout's going to go down. Double kill for Knight, but Sky manages to trade it.
That is a messy fight for both sides, but it is going to favor Top Esports getting those proper kills they need to, as well as being able to secure the Rift Herald. That now allows them to be able to push in where they need to in the bot lane, continue to get JackeyLove more gold, to be able to continue to flex that might over Viper and try to prove who is the better ADC.
Both mid laners now, though, with 2 kills off the back of the early skirmishes that we've seen here. Both of them starting to pick up leads for themselves. However, they can still just match each other. So you don't expect any action between them in terms of a 1v1. But when it comes to influencing these fights, that's where it's really going to change things.
And when we look at this replay, I actually really like what Top Esports do initially. They're great at being able to keep Jiejie at bay, but I feel like after losing 369, it's a bit of a questionable play because they're trying to recoup some of their losses, right? They're trying to be able to get a little bit more gold, and this is a great flash in from Karsa. But back off. Let Knight be the one to absorb that damage coming in from Scout because he's not going to die. Then you'd be able to get a 1-for-2 trade with the Rift Herald. Either way, it doesn't really matter too much for Top Esports because they got that Rift Herald. They still can maintain those edges, those leads in these lanes, and possibly get a bit of priority mid lane to continue to harass EDG to look to see if they can outscale them in the mid game.
That'll be the question, is if they can outscale. And you have to say, like, on those kind of plays where Top Esports chase for the extra kills, like every other LPL team, or not even, no, that's not really fair because there are teams like IG that exist. And a lot of other teams, after getting the Herald and losing 1 kill, would be like, you know what? We'd cut our losses here, take the Herald, get out of here. But Knight and Karsa just go in. Now Karsa wants to put that Herald gold onto JackeyLove. Who could have predicted this one, that they want to slam that gold into Draven? He's going to wait for his opportunity here as Zhuo steps up aggressively in the lane.
Oh, that ward, that's why. I was wondering, I'm like, that's a bit of a surprise to see Karsa back off that. I'd expect them to still look for a play, regardless of if Jayce is there or not. They actually rotate up a bit, but I'm waiting for them to pull the trigger.
One of the big things about EDG, which has been consistent this entire year, is how intelligent they are at playing the game. Not just in terms of what they want to do, but in terms of what their opponents want to do. They know that Top Esports would love that. In we go with the hook, though. The flash forward from Zhuo. Meiko out of that one. The Whirling Death not doing a whole heap of much as Meiko gets the triple knockup. He sacrificed himself. Can they win the fight, though? The Lantern over. Flash from Viper to dodge the hook. Now Jiejie into the fray. He's tanking up, but right now EDG are outnumbered, and I don't think this is a fight that they can take anymore. Over the pit goes the trio, and Top Esports get out like it's daylight robbery here. In the meantime, Flandre TP down, hasn't been able to get in the fight at all, and 369's just free pushing. Top Esports, they get a kill, they get a dragon, they get free time in the top side. Everything's beautiful for Top.
The only thing you missed there, Munch, is they also cashed out on JackeyLove at 12 minutes into the game. I was nearly perfect on my prediction of when they'd want to make that play, and that is going to be a huge swing for Top Esports, where before it was pretty even, right? We looked at both teams, we saw that they could have either team really getting anything, and now you've got this gold ballooning over for Top Esports. It's about 3,000 gold they now held over EDG, and they're going to continue to be able to escalate that with that Rift Herald finally popped bot lane. All this cash influx for JackeyLove. He is going to be so happy.
That is so much. And one of those, that fourth plate that he just got was a solo plate as well, because the Herald hadn't autoed just yet. So JackeyLove, I'm watching when he recalls here, right? He's got a crit kick, he's got a pickaxe, and he's got a noon quiver. He's going to go back, he's going to get himself boots, a mythic, maybe a serrated dirk or something alongside it. I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. Here we go, 3-man dive on the top side. 369 will have a TP coming from Knight, and it deters the play. Once again, Top Esports hold the early game lead, deny the play. And look at that goal lead they've got for themselves.
Gold lead, huge for TES. Kraken Slayer completed for JackeyLove with a Sheen as well, doubled up on the longswords. That is a lot of gold now. Put in the right spots with the right builds for the right people at the right time. That this is that early game domination, the lane kingdom, as you had talked about, Munch, where it is all about being able to win out in these lanes, then execute the win game mechanic.
And I think that the lane that's most impressive to me in terms of that laning phase recently has been that mid lane as well. And you can see that reflected a little in this game in that Scout, obviously he's got a matchup where it's fairly neutral. You can kind of handshake that lane a lot of the time, but consistently Scout has been one of the better mid laners in the league when it comes to maintaining differences, especially when it comes to like CS per minute. He's top 3 in the league, tied alongside Angel and Knight for second. It's only Fofo topping them there, but it's only by 0.1. Like, this guy has been consistently able to become a late game threat for EDG because of his safe lane.
But that's the thing. They need to be able to get to that late game. They need to be able to hold on, and it seems that it's getting much more difficult in this game especially, as every single time they look to make a play, Top Esports are on top of it. They're constantly putting this pressure and accelerating the game like we'd want them to with this sort of composition.
Well, they can look towards a Herald if they want to. They already got the top tower and the bottom tower, and now they want to go mid to finish this one off as well. And this Draven pick, he's going for Kraken Slayer, by the way.
Oh, I know. Normally it's the Mortal Shield bow, but we've seen Kraken Slayer come up a couple times. I'm just curious how much gold he has. How much have been given to JackeyLove?
A lot is the answer. He's spent a bunch of it. He's got the Kraken Slayer. He's got a Sheen. He's got 2 long swords as well. Didn't even bother with the boots, by the way. He's just got his level 1 boots that he had before that recall, because more swords is always better. Karsa, you cheeky devil, you. Just snags away the Scuttle Crab. Jiejie doesn't get anything this game.
He's just like, come on, man. I had that. That was mine. He just literally, as quickly as possible, grabs it, is out of there like he's going to fast food or McDonald's or something. Like, all right, here we go. Time to get home. I don't want to miss my favorite program. There you go. There's the gold for me.
Yeah. I do want to quickly hit on the compositions here, because I feel like we're painting this picture of EDG want to scale up and fight in the late game, and that's everything, right? But on the side of Top Esports, the scaling isn't terrible either. But the key thing is that the two teams want to play differently later on into the game. It's not like Draven stops two-shotting people late game. Like, he's still a crit 80 carry. He's still insane in the late game. But when you've got things like this Jayce on your team, you don't want to be grouped up and fighting. And if you do get in a grouped up position, you want to play at range. You want to be kiting back during this fight. Whereas EDG, as you rightly said before, very much that grouped up team fight composition. So it's not so much just about scaling. Like, EDG do need to scale before they can go for those team fights, but it's also about watching how these two teams play out those team fights later, and if Top Esports can just keep EDG at arm's length.
And for Top Sports, they don't actually even care about getting to a team fight spot. All they want to do is constantly harass. As you mentioned, it's not like JackeyLove's gonna suddenly not be able to one-shot Viper or Scout if he gets near them. That's exactly what they want to do, is have him nearly two-tap someone. But with them being so low, usually they're going to try to disengage. EDG are going to want to bail out of the fight. So as long as TES are able to consistently harass EDG, it will completely mitigate any of that fight potential that EDG would want to set up.
I think one of the insane things about... do you know what? I'm going to come back to that point. Because we've got a Drake that's just spawned. We're one apiece on Drakes right now. And Top Esports, they know that they've got the lead. 4,000 gold is their lead at the moment as Flandre moves on over. Has exhaust thanks to his spell hook. Won't be able to get a smite for himself. Drake just going to be start 369, hammering away some damage in. With the engage goes Flandre. He's in the middle of everyone, but he's just not tanky enough yet. Goes down immediately to the whirling death. And that's disaster for EDG. No way they can continue to contest. Bit of a botched engage. And now that's Dragon.
And remember, you had asked why it was the Kraken Slayer for Draven as opposed to the Immortal Shield Bow. You're kind of curious as why that was the option, and that is exactly why. It is to make sure that if Flandre ever goes for a fight, he is not going to be tanky enough to be able to survive long enough like he normally would be. Having that third hit auto attack passive in it is going to be able to melt him until he can get some more resistance. And since it's early enough in the game, look at this. Look at how quickly this damage comes in from JackeyLove.
Yeah, Flandre going 1v5 there, basically. Not, unfortunately, the way to play it. And the rest of EDG couldn't follow up on the engage on that one. So, unfortunate for EDG there. Shockwave from
He was
Knight.
trying to kill it
God.
before it reset. I understood what he was trying to do. He was afraid that EDG were going to collapse on him, which is true. That probably would have happened.
I love Knight. Knight is one of the most exceptional players in the world. But that was a hilarious blunder. That was like silver solo queue level blunder right there. You love to see it. Look, it happens to everyone, even the best, and Knight is proof of that right here on our screens. But that was that's a beautiful human moment from Knight right there.
But ask yourself this too. Would a silver player even think to use Shockwave on a blue buff before it resets? I mean, I'm wondering that myself now.
Well, here's the thing. If you're a silver player, everyone's going to flame you for shockwaving the blue buff. If you're Knight, everyone's going to be like, oh, that's probably a good play. I'm going to stop it. It's all about perspective.
That is fair. You know what? That is fair. It's, the whole idea of like dodging skill shots and stuff. You're like, oh, I gotta do this to dodge that. And like as you get up in skills, it's like, oh, I don't want to move for this reason and that reason. And then you finally get to Challenger. It's like you don't move at all because you don't want to dodge his ability at all.
Let's come back to skill shots because top esports are doing their customary 20-minute Baron bait and EDG have to respond to it. But look where 369 is on the map. Top esports don't actually want this Baron. They just want to make sure EDG cannot contest the bottom side.
They're going to even pop Rift Herald, just more because it was about to time out for Karsa than anything else. But if you think about it, if it's going to keep pushing into the side lane, you have 369 already in that bot lane to put a little bit of pressure onto Scout. So now TES move up to be able to take away a lot of that vision from EDG. So maybe if they go back to the Baron, this time it's not actually going to be one of those baits. It's actually going to just be them taking it.
Hang on. 369's in trouble in the bot side. Flandre has gone down there to try and gank him alongside Scout. This means top esports can go onto the Baron. Looks like 369 got out safely. We don't get to see that scuffle, but means the top esports go for this Baron. Hook comes in here, and Meiko is removed from the situation. Onto the Baron they go once more. Jiejie is here, has Flash, has Smite available. But can he actually get into this pit? Flandre in, doesn't find the knock-up, and immediately he's the next target. Top esports just picking him off one by one. Flandre surviving, at least for now, as Zhuo taking a lot of damage. In goes Viper, beautiful little pick there. The Chaos Storm, not quite there as JackeyLove gets one for himself. Baron goes down. Can they survive, though? That's the question. Top esports trying to make their way, trying to maneuver out of this pit. Shockwave onto Viper, just about gets away from the Shock Blast, though. Scout can't answer. Top esports get the Baron.
They get the Baron, barely are able to get out of there alive as well, but they only really trade Zhuo in the entire extended exchange between the two sides. This is a big win for TES now to be able to push and continue to have that siege capability that I was talking about and highlighting before, utilizing 369, karsa, even JackeyLove to constantly harass EDG under their turrets.
And this is one of the perfect examples of exactly what I love watching with top esports. The way they play these ranged compositions, like not many teams play compositions like this with absolutely no frontline. It's all about pick and long range, but look how they keep EDG at arm's length the entire fight. They kite around the back of the Baron pit to make sure nobody from EDG can ever quite close the gap.
And here, Flandre, it's funny because he was doing so much work to be able to disengage bot lane to try to see if he could keep 369 out of this potential fight. But like you mentioned and highlighted before, Viper was doing a great job of trying to pick off the low health members. Unfortunately, since Jiejie had died towards the beginning, it meant there wasn't really a great way for them to try to get in the pit to be able to steal that away. So really, it was just them picking off as many members as humanly possible.
And just think back in time. Think how many times we've seen top esports make these ridiculous plays with long-range comps around the Baron pit. All of the best top esports moments are those moments. Now top esports with this Baron, they know how to use it because they get it every damn game. They're going to be able to siege up in multiple lanes. You've got 369, can go to any of the side lanes if he wants to, but right now he's just looking to get some shock blasts out on the enemy team. And like you said before, with this long-range comp, they are perfect at setting up these extended sieges. There's another Dragon up if they fancy grabbing themselves Soul Point. They can do whatever they want.
Exactly. Do they need to get it? Not really. But it's a good idea to have just in case the big disaster that might be imminent can happen. If they get caught out, if they're a little too aggressive, they can always fall back to that as an option. I doubt that's going to happen here because their composition is built. So that's 2 shockwaves now that we've got it for Knight that have been questionable. But
yeah, Knight's not having the greatest game in terms of the shockwaves, but you know what? It's fine. He's 202. His CS is great. It's fine, guys. It's fine.
I'm going to go back to the point that I was trying to make before Knight did that. It doesn't really matter for the side of top esports. They have so much of an advantage here that it's them just waiting. They're waiting things out because the safe option is to try to see if they can wait for Baron. Get one more Baron to be able to push out because it's going to time out here before they can make any more use of it. There's not really much else they can get. There's no outer turrets that remain for EDG. There's only these inhibitors. While some of them might be kind of low, it's still risky. Their team composition is built to fight. EDG might be behind, but they have elements that are still going to be able to absorb a lot of damage coming in from Top's esports. So wait it out. Try to see if you can set up a siege where you have a 1-3-1 or even a 3-1-1. Anything really to be able to pinpoint and to keep EDG run ragged so they're never able to have that meatball composition they want.
And I love Flandre has basically acknowledged what Top Esports are building and built around that. He's gone for a Warmogs very, very early on into the game. That's because, you know, as you rightly said, JackeyLove has a ton of armor pen now with the Lord Dominic's, but also has that true damage on his Kraken Slayer. You got a Leandri's there from Knight. So the only way to play around that burn, the only way to play around the armor pen is just have infinite HP. So that's Flandre's game plan right now.
Well, and that is one thing people always forget about Sion, is technically he's the only champion that can infinitely scale his health.
It's true. One of the only infinite scaling champions in the game. But I don't think Top Esports are too worried about infinite scaling because in 3 minutes time, they won't even need to build armor because they'll have that Mountain Soul for themselves. They get so much extra value out of the defensive stats. But here's the thing. You can see that Top Esports are kind of at an impasse, right? We're talking about how they need to snowball the game. They need to finish out fast. And they have one of the fastest average game times in the entire league. I think 3rd place in terms of that. But when you're against a composition like this, with a Tristana, with a Vikotr, it's incredibly difficult to actually crack into space because EDG have a ton of wave clear. So without Baron on the board, without Baron there to pull EDG out of their base, it's actually very difficult for Top Esports to close out the game.
Which is exactly why they're not even trying to push for any of these inhibitor turrets. They're waiting. They know that they can get every bit of the jungle because they own the jungle now. Doesn't matter what side of the map it's on, it's theirs. They're literally just trying to see if they can slowly strangle the life out of EDG, take every resource on the map, and then wait for these objectives. That's really the timer that's going to be able to end the game, because EDG are going to have to answer it. They're going to have to get something, otherwise they're forfeiting the game, and why not just FF at that point? If you're not even going to try to fight back, sure, you can make the argument that it's better to fight in your own base than try to fight into the jungle, but it's not going to be when they poke you out forever and ever and ever, and you can't even get near them.
Okay, so what's the solution for EDG then? Because in my mind, it's something like wait for Top Esports to try and set up like a 1-3-1, get in there with Flandre and look for an opportunity where it's not quite the 5v5.
Meiko, you have to find the pick onto JackeyLove. That is the target you need to take out of this entire equation.
Flandre's working forwards and that poke damage coming through. Hooked back in. Zhuo will not let Flandre escape. The flash is there. Shockwave does land.
He's alive.
Sion denies it. Everything thrown at Flandre. And guess what? He's got Warmogs. That health bar will come back. He just has to hang around for a little bit for Top Esports. Already halfway through the Baron. Look how fast they burn through the purple worm. Easy take for Top Esports. Not the greatest smite, but they get away with it anyway. Now the shield from the Aegis. Chaos Storm is in. This is the fight for EDG. 2 picks. Can they stop the Baron buff members getting away? That's the question. Flash out from 369. Looks like 3 Baron buffs get away.
I almost think that if you're EDG there, you get the Hail Mary. You continue to fight TES. It doesn't matter if you lose 2 or 3 members. You get rid of everyone with Baron, because even one member retaining that buff is enough to force you into your own base. And this is where things get difficult. What happened in that fight, Munch? They got the member I wanted them to. They picked JackeyLove. If you look at how this works, Meiko was able to use the depth charge on to the member he needed to. Said, hey, JackeyLove, you're too far out. We can easily burst you down, and that's what they need to do. As long as you take him out, that's a lot of damage gone for the tide of TES, but now EDG might continue it.
And top esports, they knew that the Dragon Soul was coming up. I think they were just
Karsa
trying to steal this one away, but there's no way you can do this. 3v5 right now. The shockwave not quite good enough. Karsa goes golden. The whirling death from JackeyLove from across the map. How do they always get away with it? Knight might go down, but Karsa's here to answer, and it's only Meiko left. How on earth? 3v5. JackeyLove gets the global kill. It's a Mountain Soul if they want it, but they might just run it into the base.
They are going to end this game. What a whirling death out of JackeyLove to be able to pick off the important member of Viper in the backline. That is incredible out of this ADC, cementing his Draven pick as the best.
This is why this team has brainwashed me. This is why, in my opinion, they're going to be the ones winning out spring, because every single situation that looks impossible, they show you that just the mechanical play is too insane. Top esports now 1-0 over EDG with a dominant win here. They just got to finish off the Nexus, but you know they're going to mess around a little bit. 1-0 now over EDG.
And it is a beautiful performance with that 1-0 that they got themselves out to. Over EDG, you highlighted that top esports have been on a terror in this latter half of the split, and you can see with how they play. Sure, is Draven really that meta? Not so much. But if you can pilot him like JackeyLove can, you might as well pick it to style on your opponents.
Look, in the words of Karsa, it's not about what is meta. If you win enough, you make the meta. And that is just top esports in a nutshell. Beautiful game from them. And I know, like, I'm clearly drinking the Kool-Aid when it comes to top esports. I'm drowning in the Kool-Aid because I don't know how you can theorize a way that this team loses out. I think the only team right now in the league that can contest them properly is RNG.
Where's my rare Adam? Come on, man. Don't you believe in the hype train? That's what you got your Kool-Aid, I got mine. And then again, I've also bet a pizza on top esports not winning, so I might have a reason why not to.
Here's the thing. Here's the difference between top esports and Rare Atom is that, like, Rare Atom's one of their big strengths, right, is the 2v2 in the bottom side. But you're against the best 2v2 in the league. JackeyLove and Zhuo dominate every single lane no matter what. And guess what? This is a team that Karsa usually plays through the top side, usually plays through 369. But in this game, he recognizes the way that EDG wants to play. He recognizes that getting JackeyLove ahead is the way forward, and he changes up his play style. Top esports, way more versatile of a team than I think a lot of people give them credit for.
And I think this is an incredible strength out of them. You see, 369, when given Jayce, is going to do an absolute ton of work for the team. Look at the damage charts. I'm sure you're going up against Sion, so it's kind of inflated. You're constantly hitting this big wall of man in Sion. But still, he was able to do so much work on the top side. It allowed Karsa to be able to focus so heavily on JackeyLove and Zhuo to get this Draven in that position to cash out early, so you had that snowball rolling.
And you can see, obviously, the damage chart in this kind of game is going to be skewed because there actually weren't that many fights. Like, in the grand scheme of this game, a lot of it was all about the macro play and how top esports were playing out the map. 369 is always going to top the damage chart in those kind of scenarios because he's a Jayce against a Sion in lane, so he's just throwing out so many auto attacks, so many shock blasts. Like, the whole point of this composition from top esports, even though they have a lot of damage, the goal is not to really fight that much. The goal is just to poke people out so that the opponent can never properly fight you. And that's what we managed to see them doing. So really nicely played by top esports. And for EDG now, moving into game 2, you have to bring up the question of what has to change here, because it feels to me like There was too much scaling. There wasn't enough of a way to contest top esports in the early game. And
I
this
feel
isn't
like
a team that throws away leads when they get to the late game.
Right, and I feel like this is going back to why EDG have been struggling since the break. Teams have figured them out. Teams have figured out what their strength is, which is trying to play for the late game, trying to be able to build up so they can rely on Viper in team fights, rely on Scout for the team fights, and now that they know, they just punish them early so they can win before EDG can scale.
All right, well, let's see if EDG change tact coming into game number 2. I'm sure that they got plenty more cards up their sleeves, and let's find out what cards are remaining right after.